we are starting in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're back. So Blue and I are back with the third test case now of the TMCJ podcast. Name is still pending, but I like that one. It's, rolls off the tongue like a pile of bricks, but we'll work on it.
Yep.
So subject to today's podcast, we've, as I've said in previous ones, been testing out different segments that are going to be part of the final podcast. First one was topics. Second one was media. We talked mostly about movies last time. And this is more just like the kind of free discussion section. I envision this in the final podcast either being us continuing debates from previous sections or just talking about new and interesting things that we encountered during the week.
Yeah, and I think one of the possibly the issues that we're going to find reviewing these three test cases that after the first one, I think we've gotten a lot better at just normally doing this since the first one. So I don't think it'll be just the topics that affect the way that people see the three test cases, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first two were like night and day. Like, listening back to the first one,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, God, we're both umming and ahhing. We're waffling back and forth. We had a little bit
And I
more comfortable when we got to the Star Wars section.
don't know if that's because of the topics, like we're better at talking about certain topics than other topics, or whether it was literally just we've become used to
Well,
I mean,
I think
seeing past the shroud.
I think, well, we've both talked about this. I think it's become pretty obvious that once we forget that we're being recorded, we suddenly start to
Oh yeah,
be a lot more
loose.
yeah, I was going to say photogenic, but that doesn't make any sense. Cause
To be fair, I think I don't know. Oh, maybe that's what we should call the podcast: Loose Men.
oh, God, please no. Jesus. All right, let's let's jump into this. So, the first thing that I had written down as something that I wanted to talk about was actually a game that's come to my attention pretty recently that I may actually do some kind of a video on.
Right.
The,
Is this one of the topics you've been talking about throughout the week, where you've been like, I want to talk about this, but I gotta save it?
it was one of the topics from yesterday. I only discovered it on Thursday, so when I was saying last night, I was like, oh, I want to tell you about the. Oh, wait, I gotta wait, and now I finally can. The game is called Help Will Come Tomorrow, and very bleak name right off the bat. It takes place like during the Russian Revolution.
Is it a zombie game?
No, it is not.
Oh, okay.
So it's, how do I put this? So there's a train crash to start off the game, and you end up with four random characters, and in the distance you can hear the revolutionaries executing the rest of the survivors from the train crash.
Oh,
And
what are they revolutionizing?
well, it's the Bolsheviks during the Russian Revolution. So
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry.
yeah. They're instilling communism.
Right, but does that mean everyone on the train is
No, so
fascist?
okay, we're going into history territory here, but during the Russian Revolution in the 1900s, it was the whites versus the reds. The reds being the communists and the whites being the loyalists to the czar. The communists mainly took power by destabilizing the country. That's terrorist actions, blowing up railways, preventing transport, essentially bringing the entire country to a halt so that they could seize power.
And I get that, but how did they know whether the people on the train were
They didn't.
communists? Or not?
And in fact,
they
some
were
of the
executing their own as well.
yeah, exactly. So in fact,
Damn.
so the way the game works is you end up with four random characters. Some of them could, and they have random backgrounds, random political beliefs, random competencies. So you could end up with, and in fact, the first time I played it, I ended up with these people. I ended up with a aristocrat woman, she actually had a trait that made every single task she did, no matter how proficient she was, she had a chance to fail it. Because
Okay.
she was an aristocrat. I also had a communist dude who they hated each other. But he was like a communist peasant, so he was good with his hands, but he pissed off everyone else in the group.
Yeah.
I also had a soldier and a foreigner.
A bit like you guys.
Yeah, it is a talent of mine. But anyway, so the way the game works is you can do things around your camp. You can send scouting parties out to gather materials. You can fortify your camp, build up a fire, and you have to balance keeping your people alive, and keeping their morale up with surviving and not attracting attention from the revolutionaries or from animals in the forest.
Yeah.
And you can assign people to do tasks together, which increases their chance to succeed and doesn't use up as many like action points for the day. But if they don't like each other, it can lower morale by making them essentially piss each other off. So like if I paired up the communist and the aristocrat, it would...
That wouldn't go well.
Yeah, exactly. They'd get the task done, but their morale would go down and they'd probably hate each other. So far, it's been pretty interesting. Very
Sounds
minimalist.
A lot like another game I played a long while back. So it's also history based. It was I feel like I remember. It was the war that lasted a week or something. It was in a snowy country. I remember that much. And you're stuck in like ruined, rundown house. And every so often, a survivor will come to your door, and you can choose whether to accept them.
Oh, are you talking about This War of Mine?
I think it is. Yeah, it's like a 2D.
Yeah.
You make decisions, and you have to keep the heating going and the food.
I actually have that game. I think one year, I think Mass gave it to me as a Christmas present in like 2017 or something like that.
Christmas present, yeah.
Yeah. It's a jolly old Christmas. Thinking about death and survival. It was a fun game. I played around with it for a while. But yeah, it's similar to that. So that game, This War of Mine, I think it's even more minimalist than that. Where you've got the characters barely even move. Like the animation is very minimal. The art is like this kind of rough painted kind of look to it.
Yeah. A lot of grays and bleak. Yeah.
You don't like in that game. You see your characters actually walking around and interacting with things. That doesn't happen in this. It's very. I think despite that, or maybe because of that, it actually is. It's pretty engaging. One of the big selling points is finding out the backstory and the of the characters, because there's a mechanic that during the day they do tasks. They can clear away snow, set up fortifications, build a workshop, build up a fire, gather resources. But at night, what happens is they all talk to each other around the campfire, and you get to choose what they talk about. But some things will increase the relationship with each other and how well they interact, and some topics will do the opposite of that. Or sometimes they'll hate each other more, but they'll have respect for each other's competencies more. It's a very there's a lot of depth to it, despite how simple it seems on the surface.
Are there any other history games that come to mind?
History games,
okay, and I know this thing, I'm gonna probably get slandered for this. I always loved COD 5, Call of Duty 5 World at War, because it showed you the Americans. You played as the Americans or the Russians, fighting through Nazi-occupied Germany. And I know Nazis are done to death.
Yeah.
But they actually take a fairly accurate stance on the actual progression of where the units were fighting, even attacking the Reichstag at the end of the game with the Russians. And they cut in some like actual footage, I believe, from the war.
Interesting. So I never did.
Really? Oh
no,
my god.
No. So I'm not really a big COD player. So I played Battlefield 5, the one with that was World War 1. Which
right.
I went into that hoping for what you're describing, like an accurate game that kind of talked about the war and not talked about it, but like portrayed it evenly, because World War II is done to death, but it's also done very poorly in most media.
Yes.
Because it's like, oh, look at these giant evil demon men coming out of Deutschland.
Right, and I think, and don't get me wrong, I love this game. I think the idea of it is hilarious. The ones with the mecha Nazis. Well, Wolfenstein.
Oh, Wolfenstein, yeah. I've played Wolfenstein, yeah.
I haven't played it. I've seen it, and I'm like, oh.
I never played the original ones, which they were apparently pretty revolutionary for their time, but I played, I think it was New Order, not New Blood. Right. It was the one where the hilariously named BJ Blazkowicz ends up in a coma in a hospital.
Right.
And then wakes up and the Nazis have taken over everything, and then he has to go off fighting Nazi space wizards for the rest of the game. I did enjoy those games, the Wolfenstein games, but that's because I like alternative history, like the what if scenarios. Like one of my favorite ones is like, what if Julius Caesar was never assassinated? Because there were so many like little details where if it didn't happen, or if there's one thing, exactly. Yeah. So I think about that, because if Caesar never got assassinated, then Augustus would have never come to power, and the Roman Principate might never have come to pass. So what would have Rome looked like after that? Would have even existed? I'm actually going to take a hard beeline here. And did you want to talk more about the COD game, or?
No, that's fine.
We've kind of moved into the whole alternate history sphere, so I did want to talk about a book series that I...
Oh, yeah?
It was a book series that I read the first book of back in 2016, and it made such an impact on me that I immediately bought the next book in the series, and then promptly never read it, because then I got like hooked on the Witcher series and kept reading those books. But the book series, the first book I think is called Clash of Eagles, I think. The concept of the series is, what if the Roman Empire never fell in like the 4th century? What if instead it kept going until it annexed the Vikings, and so they actually overcame their one weakness, which was seafaring, and then the Romans in the year 1200 discovered North America. And then, because at that point, that is where the people in North America were at the height of their power. And the whole reason that they weren't like a serious threat to the European colonizers later was that they what am I trying to say? Was that the diseases that they brought over from living with animals, essentially, like smallpox and whatnot, wiped out something like 70 to 90% of the Native American population. But the Romans didn't do that. They were a very hygienic like culture, so they wouldn't have brought those same diseases. So you would have had the Romans at the height of their power.
What are you saying about the English?
I'm saying that you guys, fuck pigs. To be fair, it was the Spanish.
Whoa. We didn't start the coronavirus.
The big bad coof? To be fair, though, the diseases that spread throughout the New World were actually spread by the Spanish conquistadors. Right. There was especially in southern European countries, the peasants, the place that smallpox came from was actually pigs. So pigs would live essentially in basically the same living space as the rest of the family. There was partitions, obviously, but it was similar, and it was that close proximity to animals that caused the disease to jump species, and Europeans built up an immunity to it. But the Native Americans didn't have that same immunity, and so it wiped out most of the population in North and South America. The people finding evidence now that entire civilizations have disappeared in those two continents. I'm getting off into the weeds here, but
let's look at food disease and all that.
Yeah. So basically, in this book series, that doesn't happen. The Roman Empire keeps going, and they discover North America. So the book series follows one Roman. I want to say he's a centurion, but I think he's higher ranked than that. Anyway, he.
Like it.
Yeah, that's lower ranked.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Uh,
I'm not very good at this. I don't know the Roman ranks by heart, despite my obsession with history. But anyway, so he ends up kind of being captured by this Native American. I don't want to say tribe; it was a civilization. The people around the Mississippi, who had entire cities, and the evidence has been found of this today that they had these giant cities that were essentially devastated by disease and eventually just fell apart.
Yeah.
So he finds them, he interacts with them, and they're already a big city, but he makes them a power player because he starts getting involved with them and training them in Roman infantry tactics, and turns them into a giant like military powerhouse.
Okay.
And that's
And
where the
he
first
trains them well.
yeah.
It's
Well,
not just like Bay of Pigs.
well, it's because so essentially the mode of warfare, and there's a lot of evidence for this. The mode of warfare in North America at this point in time was mostly involved around like lightly armored, fast infantry units charging in and going into a melee. But Roman infantry tactics were to have shields, spears, swords, and essentially be invulnerable to that kind of warfare, wear down the opponent, and then just shank them. And in the book, they actually make a good point about this. They show that the people that he's teaching, the people who weren't in his unit, are laughing at him. They're like, "Oh, this is silly. This is never gonna work. You guys you're so slow. You're never gonna be able to fight." And then they dominate in every military engagement because of the slower, more methodical defensive tactics.
Battle of attrition kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how the Romans generally fought. So I never read the second book. I'm thinking about getting back into it and actually picking up the second book because it ended on a pretty fascinating cliffhanger, like implying that they were going to go into South America next.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I never got back to it. I spent 4 years away from the book, but now I think I'm ready to go back. Anyway, that's me ranting.
No, that was the book series that was for a younger audience. Bear in mind, I read this like 10 years ago, where it was a bit more fictitious. It was about like actually. It started off as a bit of a children's thing, and then it kind of, in the later books, became a bit more grown up.
Yeah.
Because it was like an everyday children's story where it's like 4 kids go and solve problems in the world, right?
It's a hard not life for us.
And
sorry.
So they get transported through time to like these different places, and they're like not assassinating Hitler, but
they're
that
messing
kind
with
of thing.
history.
Yeah. And they're removing important figures and other such things. And that was really good because I love alternate history.
It's
but
always,
then
yeah, go on.
I was gonna say then like in the 4th or so book you learn that like 2 of them get ripped apart by zombies, right?
Oh god.
It's a complete curveball to me. And then they're like, oh, but actually they were never human to start with because those 2 were actually robots who were tasked with like enslaving the 3rd child into doing tasks. And I'm like, first 3 books, mind blown. It's like so random and so savage. And the person that's leading them is like an outcast. Anyway, go on.
I'm sorry, did this book series suddenly get fucking taken over by M. Night Shyamalan?
Well, geez, it was freaky. Because you connected these characters over 3 books. And then you're just like, yeah, they were actually dicking over this person the whole time.
If we're talking about like, so that kind of makes me think of another. Do you remember what the book series was called?
I can't remember. It was some kind of time traveling children. So,
Hmm.
uh,
You were talking about like impoverished children and stuff, and I'm remembering a book that I. This is not what I was gonna jump into talking about, but just talking about like books like that. There was a book series that I read as a kid when I was very young, called the Boxcar Children.
right, I've heard of that, but I've not actually read or seen it.
Yeah, it's so. If I remember correctly, it's these orphans who end up living out of a train boxcar, and they go on like some adventures, and eventually something happens in the book series. I can't remember exactly what, but they end up having like a rich patron. They still live in the boxcar, but he just moves the boxcar into his backyard because he lives in like a mansion.
Right.
And then they continue going on wacky adventures and having like solving mysteries. It's an interest. I mean, it was an interesting series, but that was not what I was going into. I was actually going to talk about the series Animorphs. Did you ever read those?
No, again, it's not one I've heard of, but I've not seen it.
So Animorphs is basic premise, bunch of normal. I don't know if people can hear that. There's somebody like shouting in Spanish out my window.
No, I can't. I wish I could.
I think he's on the phone, but he's talking like really
Our
fucking
first
loud
guest
in
of the
Spanish.
show.
Oh, we now have a guest star. His name is Javier. I've been learning Spanish, or I've been practicing my Spanish again.
Oh yeah.
I had forgotten. I'm going off on a complete different tangent once again. But my New Year's resolution this year was to go back to one of the languages that I've learned and practice it enough that I can actually just read a book.
Time Riders. Sorry.
Time
Just
Riders?
before I forgot, that's what it was called. Time Riders.
Time
Yeah, I
Riders.
just.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. I was going off on a complete random tangent. We're getting lost in the weeds here. I think we need to refocus. I'm gonna pull up. Actually, I did the
Alrighty.
first topic that led us all the way here. Did you have anything specifically that you had like written down that we could that you wanted to bring up?
Only really recent thing is that we've got back into Valorant.
Got back into that is an interesting way to put
Well,
it.
I played it originally, realized I couldn't play with any of my friends, gave it up. Now I can actually play with my friends, because
I
I don't know, they didn't want to mix the races, Kaiser, before, but now
the Brits and the Americans, they don't get along.
yeah, but no, now we've been played with Scott and
So
you.
I played with Scott this morning, all morning, and
Mm,
I don't think I could have performed worse. Like,
really?
I was very near the bottom of the leaderboard every single game.
Come for practice, man.
I don't know. It's not my kind of shooter. So
No.
this is actually a good good topic to get into. Like I never played FPS growing up. Like my style of
Really?
games were RPGs. Like
Right.
thinking about the games I played as a kid, I played like Legend of Zelda was a big one. I played the Mario games when I was very young on the NES.
Mm.
Then like later in life I got into what did I have for the N? Oh, Star Fox and the N64 and stuff like that. The first thing that got me into shooters was Halo 1 on the original Xbox.
Yeah.
And even that, it took me a while to get into it. But once I did, I started playing competitively online. Back then, you had to like plug your Xbox into your computer and go on like fucking GameSpy network. There was no Xbox Live.
Yeah.
There were
Oh, well,
cheaters fucking everywhere.
back in the day, Halo was only available to Xbox players, and I think Call of Duty was only available to PlayStation players.
I think you're thinking of Medal of Honor, but it's the same sort of game.
Maybe.
Yeah, Medal of Honor
I
is
did-
the COD-esque game.
So you played Halo, which is like the biggest difference I find between COD and Halo is shields.
Yeah.
You need to shoot someone for like accurately shoot someone for about 5 seconds at least on Halo to kill them.
And
On
that's
COD, if you get one headshot, you're done.
and that's what I liked about Halo. Like
That's what I like about
engagements.
COD.
All right, so let me give my argument here. My thinking is like who wins an engagement shouldn't be who popped up and said boo first. It should be the person who's actually better in the fight. So if somebody surprises you in Halo, you still have a chance to come back and actually fight them off and win. In COD, if somebody surprises you, you're just fucking dead. Like it's game over if somebody just walks around the corner and boop pops you in the head. You know, that's the end of the fight. That both it rewards people who surprise the enemy, and it rewards people who get lucky.
Yeah.
Halo, on the other hand, and games like Halo that have the shield and the fights take a little bit longer, it rewards actual skill. And I know I'm biased saying that, but I think it does, because like you actually have to maintain performance throughout the fight. Whereas in COD, you don't. I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of shit for saying this, because there are people out there who are like, no, COD has tons of skill. It's just not. It's not my variety game. That's why like Valorant is not really my cup of tea, because it's very much in the line of, you know, who gets the jump on who first, rather than who is able to maintain.
And I don't did Halo ever
very
get
eloquent. Very eloquent.
Thank you. Did Halo ever get a bunch of hackers on it?
So I know that typing just came through my mic on the podcast. So it did.
The reason I asked
it did in Halo 1 especially, because it wasn't regulated. Xbox Live wasn't out at that point, so we were playing through like LAN services like GameSpy Network. Halo 2 was Xbox Live, and they did their best to like curb people who cheated and stuff like that, but they still existed. I still remember one of my favorite games of Halo 2, and this still lives in my memory. Some of my high school friends and we were playing on this map. I know it started with an R. I cannot I think it was called Reach. I cannot remember the name, but
that makes sense.
I'm pretty sure it's called Reach. It was in Halo 2. It was an island. There was a big tower in the middle of the map, and there was a little underside to the tower. We quickly realized that one of the people on the enemy team had hacked his game. He could fire his battle rifle, fully automatic, infinite ammo. He could jump like 1,000,000 feet in the air, but he didn't have auto aim. That's key to this. So we were strategically like hiding ourselves in areas and using snipers and other power weapons to pick off his teammates, and we stayed pretty much in line. It's first to 50 kills. So they did what a lot of cheating teams normally do. He convinced his teammates to all leave the game, because if they all left the game but they won, then they would all get the points and rank up. So he convinced his team. So it was only him versus the 4 of us. And it improved his odds, because we only had 1 target, but he had 4, and he had all these advantages. We hid in the underground area of the building, and there was only one way in. It was through the roof. So he would jump, fall down, and try to machine gun us to death, but we had him surrounded from all 4 sides, and we'd just pepper him the moment he jumped in and kill him. We actually ended up winning the game. But yeah, so I went off on a tangent again, but yes, there were cheaters in Halo 1 and 2, and Halo 3 to a lesser degree. They got a little bit better about eliminating them, but they did exist.
Yeah, so the reason I brought it up was because one thing that kind of always disappointed me a bit about the COD games is that after a year or two, bear in mind they released a new game every year.
Yeah.
COD, you had to keep playing. What?
I was just gonna say COD essentially ended up being the Madden of FPS.
Yeah, it's really shit. I haven't bought a COD game in like 5 years. But yeah, so as I said, I loved COD 5, and I'll occasionally play the multiplayer on it. But I came back to it a couple of years after, joined a lobby, which was surprising in itself because quite often, the moment there's a new game, these games kind of lose their online community, unless they're really good. And every single person on my team and the enemy team were walking around with, I think, a Mosin, which I'm sure you're aware is like a bolt-action sniper.
Yep.
And yeah, just the moment you walk outside of the base, someone would flick headshot you from like anywhere else.
Well,
so I'm there with my PPSH, trying to get close enough even to hit one of them, and it's just no. The moment you come within 20 meters, dead.
It's one of the reasons that I don't think I ever really got into like the COD-esque games, because they end up just being like, after a year or two, whatever game you're playing becomes abandonware.
Yeah.
Like, there are people who play it, and the only people who play it are the people who got really hardcore at it, or the people who are cheating like motherfuckers.
The only way you can survive.
Yeah. We've got deep down into the FPS rabbit hole at this point. I'm gonna bring us back out, because we've spent a lot of this time just talking about FPS, specifically about video games. I feel like we talked about video games, we talked about books. I would actually like to talk about something a little bit different.
Okay. I will just say, we have overrun. Are we just going to split this in two again? Do an hour and split it in two?
No, I think we should just let's keep going.
Okay.
Well, okay. One last topic. One last topic, because God, really, any of these segments could be an entire podcast on their own, because we just end up talking and talking and talking. But to keep it concise and to keep it kind of tight, last thing I want to do is, and I'm going to use the movie that we watched yesterday, Yumi and E, about the Beetlejuice movie I'd never seen.
Big famous movie.
Yeah, I just, something I was thinking about like after the fact, the difference between how movies were made at that point in time, like the 80s and early 90s, versus now.
Yeah, when was it made?
88.
I'll look that up while you talk.
It was made 88.
Yeah, 1988. Right.
Yeah, year I was born.
It makes so much sense now.
I'm fucking old.
I liked everything in it apart from the actual Beetlejuice guy, which the E was really weird because apparently everyone likes him.
You know what's
he's just a bit too creepy for me.
I didn't like him either. I liked the movie, but like I said last night, the bits that I liked in the movie the most were the interaction between like the dead couple and Lydia, the girl. Beetlejuice was kind of just there and kind of vestigial.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a couple. Actually, that's a perfect transition. This is the last thing that we can discuss for this. This is a perfect topic. Series that are named after, like where the titular character is the least important or least likable thing in the
Superman. Sorry,
I was gonna say Naruto, but Superman's a good example too.
Oh yeah, no, Naruto. I did fucking hate Naruto.
Like, Naruto is the biggest fucking cunt in that whole movie.
Well, actually, I don't know. Like Sakura. Does anyone like Sakura?
I did.
Really?
When I watched it, so I watched the series when I was like
whiny.
15 or 16. I remember liking him.
Him, Sakura.
Oh, sorry. I'm thinking
Sasuke.
of Sasuke. I was thinking of Sasuke. Yeah. See how long it's been since I watched this thing? Is Sakura the pink?
Is literally Amy Rose from Sonic.
She's the pink-haired chick. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Fuck her.
Oh God.
I'm trying to think back. Like all of the characters that I actually remember things about, that I actually care about, none of them were the main characters.
No.
Like the fucking Lee guy with the bowl cut and the green jumpsuit.
Yeah, you would love him, wouldn't you?
Him and his master
guy,
priceless. They were hilarious.
Oh, there's so many good scenes from him when he takes off the training pads and everyone's in the arena like, what's he wearing those tiny training pads for? He drops them. It's like a nuclear explosion goes
Yeah.
off because of how heavy they are.
They totally stole that from Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, really? Oh, I
Yeah.
haven't seen it, as you know.
Actually they stole it from Dragon Ball. So in the Dragon Ball, the at the end of the series, one of the big plot elements was the World Martial Arts Tournament, where Goku and other main characters would fight each other. It's the tournament saga in Dragon Ball was actually the tournament sagas, I should say, because there were several. But at the end of one of them, Goku is in the fight with some guy, and it's kind of going even. It looks like Goku's losing. He's like, "Oh, I guess I have to take this seriously." And he takes off his armbands and his shirt, and they weigh 10 kilos or something like that.
Right.
So that was that. It may even predate Dragon Ball, but it's a trope in anime.
Right, gotcha. Yeah, I think they did villains very well. Like, all the villains in Naruto are very cool. The Akatsuki, the shark-faced guy,
Yeah.
his awesome weapon, the wave creating one. Zabuza, I can't believe I remember his name. It's
You're doing better than I am. I'm pulling this stuff. I have not watched Naruto since I was 15 years old.
Yeah, same pretty much. And
the difference is that's a longer time for me.
Well, yes, this is true. You are a very old man.
Oh, you fucking young whippersnapper.
But I also played a few of the games as well since then.
Okay, yeah.
Which were actually pretty good. Story, but if you're playing with a friend, just versus a friend, very funny. Yeah, there's the lady villain who had origami powers. Looked so cool. She wasn't very strong, but she looked so cool.
Yeah.
And Pain.
But hold on, bringing it back to the point though, it's a series where there are so many cool people, and none of them are the main characters.
Our main characters, no, exactly.
There's so many cool people, and all the main characters are because I remember a lot of the people that you're talking about. I couldn't even remember who the fuck Sakura was.
Yeah.
Or Naruto. Naruto, the only reason I remember his name is because that was the name of the series.
Yeah. And because of the abridged series being hilarious, of course.
Oh yeah. But I'm thinking of can you think of any other series like that, anime or TV or movies, where the main character is actually, you know what? I'm gonna throw one right off the bat here. Avatar. The main character was just
Alright, are we talking about Avatar or Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Sorry, I'm talking about Avatar, the CGI Wonder Piece.
The blue people. Okay,
Yeah.
the Smurfs.
The Smurf Avatar, the Smurf version of Pocahontas. The main character, he was just some dude.
Yeah.
I barely remember. I don't remember any of his lines from the movie. Not a single one.
In that sense, though, I think they were just trying to make a person that you could put yourself in his shoes. He was quite a generic guy.
Yeah.
And so it was expected you to imprint yourself into that position, I think.
Well, so I'm not saying this concept of having a forgettable and unimportant protagonist is a bad thing. I think it can be a good storytelling element. So in Avatar, I'd argue that you're right. I think doing that, it was a very good way to tell that story, because you're not focused on the main character, you're focused on the world. In Naruto, I think it was just you have a shitty protagonist. Can you?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you think of any others like that?
Ghostbusters 2?
I never saw
As
it.
in the remake one?
I never saw it. Oh, are you talking
really?
about the Ghostbusters 2016 one?
Yeah, that one. Sorry, that might. Of course, there's a Ghostbusters 2. I mean,
There's an original Ghostbusters 2. And
Don't lynch me. Yeah. I meant the one with the all-female cast.
I have not seen it. I've seen a lot of people making fun of it, but I have never seen the movie itself. Because I never saw the original Ghostbusters. It was never a series that I was interested in. So I
Yeah.
never saw the originals. I never saw the remake.
I saw the original like as a very young child, so much so I don't really remember most of the movie.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I can't think of many movies that the main character's name is in the title and they're a piece of shit.
And you just completely forget about them. Just like
Uh,
who's this series about again? All right. Well, it's a good point to end off on then. Before we close things out, any final thoughts?
Okay, final thoughts segment. Okay.
It's a great final thought. I think that
Well,
sometimes
yeah,
too.
struggling with this one. Oh, so it's my movie choice this week, right? Isn't it?
It is your indeed. Yeah, movie night is your choice. And the next time we do this, it's going to be a full podcast, so we'll be able to discuss the movie.
Oh, really? Oh, shit. Okay. Well, there was two that I was gonna ask you which one you preferred. I can't remember what the second one is, but the first one was going to be the Blues Brothers because we've talked about it. You haven't seen it,
I haven't, yeah.
and it's amazing in my opinion. The other one, I want to say the other one was like Alien versus Predator or something.
Another movie I've never seen.
Really?
I've never seen any of the Alien movies. I've never seen any of the Alien movies, any of the Predator movies. Like,
oh my god! I mean, there's a few of them you don't need to watch, but like the first Alien and the second Alien, it's one of those weird ones where the second film was possibly better than the first.
Yeah.
And there's so many quotes like "Game over, man." You know that?
I know the quote. I didn't know it came from that.
Came from Alien 2, yeah. And
Game over, man.
Game over.
Yeah. I didn't.
That's
I did not realize that came from Alien. Okay.
But yeah, sorry, I'm dragging it onto a new topic. We shouldn't do
No,
this.
I know. We like I said, we could keep going on this forever, but we're at 42 minutes. We're gonna wrap it up here. So as usual, everyone, let us know what your thoughts are on the podcast. Anything we can improve, do better, do differently. Next week will be the full version of the podcast where we actually do all of these segments put together. And we intentionally do like an hour and a half podcast. We'll be going through topics, media, and then the sort of free discussion that we did today. It was a little bit more rambly, but that's kind of the point of this last segment. But yeah, as usual, let us know. Yeah.
Have a good week.
Yeah, talk to you guys soon.